Hello everyone. Women in Data is organizing a data and art event this week, and as a part of this event, we are going to focus on our 2021 career track program. And as a part of this career track program, the objective is this program is to diversify skills into the data careers, not only from disciplines in STEM, but also from non-STEM disciplines. I welcome all of you on behalf of Women in Data Kolkata Chapter. And today we have a very interesting discussion on the intersections of data, art, and women. Let me introduce today's speakers who are here with us. Welcome Piu and Sahiti. Piu is a practicing artist and a visual art consultant, and she's engaged in different international schools in India. She was also a part of the visual art team of SAARC based in Maryland, and she's an illustrator, a storyteller, and she loves children, and she's absolutely passionate about education. Sahiti is an art designer and art administrator based in Philly, and Sahiti's interest lies in the exploration, accessibility, social engagements, policy and education of the art sector through an intersectional lens. And coming to myself very briefly, I'm the Women in Data Kolkata Chapter Lead. I am a business partner in analytics and insights in Tata Consultancy Services. And my entire 20 years of career is in data and analytics. So in today's discussion, while I'm completely from a data career, where to me, art is an enabler for producing meaningful insights from data. We would really like to hear from Piu on how data is used to create fine arts. And then Sahiti will walk us through on how data and meaningful insights out of data is helping the art industry and the wider society altogether. So Piu, over to you.
Thank you, Sudeshna. It's a wonderful platform, and it's wonderful to be together with Sahiti and you to talk about something which I passionately love, and share few works and ideas as well of my friend. See, when I talk about data and art, what we immediately think of is data artists. And data artists are someone who focuses, who has got like programming skills, and they are the ones who render the data, give it a visual imageries. So the first slide somehow gives you an idea of what, when I mean a data artist, what do I actually mean? So this is an election map of USA, which gives you a more or less a clarity of how the two colors are winning over, and the states and the provinces are getting the red color or the blue color, the way it is. Anyway, so I'll move on to the next slide, which is completely different from what I showed at the first. The first one talks about using the data to provide an image for clarity. But the one that I have here, which I'm going to focus today, is mostly about the visualization of data, but here it has been used to narrate a story of reality, from reality, and sometimes it can be almost a poetry. So today I'm going to focus on fine arts, not applied, not functional art as well. It's mostly fine arts where an artist has meticulously collected data, intensive interviews, and also field study. And all these things he has kind of like, through a unique process of documentation and then transferring this data, he has created an artwork which you can see a part of it, which tells a story of shadows which the city sees every day. So as I move to the next slide, Sudeshna, thank you. These works are of Prashant Shahu. He is an eminent fellow artist, a friend of mine, and he's definitely an art educator as well himself. So I have taken images from his Devi series, and also these series that you can see right now are suburban shadows, and they all have been showcased in Kolkata and abroad. And these are heavily relied on data and information, and yet very poetic. So if you look at these slides as such, Sudeshna, if you can move on to the next one, if you don't mind. I might ask you to move back and forth a little bit. Yes. So if you can see, this is the suburban shadows that I was talking about. Study or sketching it is a daily practices that we all artists do. We call it memorizing what we see. It's a kind of like daily practice. So a collection, these images that you see is a collection of Prashanto's study of the shadows over almost 3 months. That's what he said to me. So what he does is that where does the data comes in? So what he does is that it's a collection of shadows of the suburban where the laborers, the working force enters the city almost every day. And the city hardly knows these people who walk in, who is their workforce. They are mostly not remembered, neither recognized. They are faceless part of this of our city. So what he has done, like when we see in reality a person, we see them with their clothes, with their nose, face, and if I'm holding on to something that has a different identity and a form. But here, when we see the shadow, they are just one layer. So the man and his identity, his tools, the vehicles which he uses to come and communicate his tools, and everything are in one single gray layer. Just like the way we hardly know these people who is a part of the city as well. Uh, the wonderful part of it, if we can move back to the other slide, Sudeshna, just the one which is, yeah. If you see, it's written study 15082020. I'm sorry, it's right in the middle of it. It's not a part of his painting. So this is the title of each of his study. What he did is that the first two is definitely the date, the second to the month, and then that's the year. So it's each of those studies are unique number. So if he has done two studies in one day, he will just write A or a B. So that's very wonderful, and that's very unique and refreshing, because he somewhere wickedly plays with the functional notion of data collections, and at the same time he kind of like romanticizes it and manipulates it and creates a kind of a story which is part of everyday city. I'll move on to the next one, the next slide. Yeah, these are his collections. This one is very fascinating. So it is again, he named most of his works as study with a unique number. So it has 8 digits again. So it is mostly more of a model study than a painting. I'll explain why. So see the hands of the farmers behind every yield. And the consumers are us, and there are the unknown producers whom we don't know. These are the mainly, I think, the concept with which he has worked. But I'm going to focus on two things which I find it very fascinating about Prashanto's work, which is also relevant with today's work. Two things. If you see the hand at the side is not an imaginary hand. It's not a hand of anybody or randomly picked up and the artist has drawn it. No. This is actually the hand, a photograph of the person. The person's name is Bikash. If you just see the table right underneath it, this table is actually a part of the final image as well. So this table is his field study, and he has used this as well as a part of the pictorial image. So here the person is Bikash, and whose data chart has his family, daily earnings, the origin, and many. So these hands are actually, not these hand, his hand is actually blown up, where every single fold, every single mark of his skin is not duplicated, but it is his hand itself. And that photograph has been transferred to image. So each of these hands actually signify, or not signify, each of these hands are actually an identity of the farmers who produce. That's pretty interesting. And there are some hands which doesn't have any mark on it. They might be the consumers, or they might be those hands of the farmers who are not there anymore and he couldn't collect any data. It can be anything, the way we interpret it. Now, if you see that he has used basically the chart, the field chart, and the table itself, and incorporated in the image making, which I find it very fascinating, where data comes in and becomes a part of the journey of the art. That's very interesting. Now, if we can just move on to the next one. Maybe I'll go there and then I'll come back a little bit just to talk about it.
Just a minute. This one, right?
No problem. Yes, absolutely. See, no, I think the one before that. This is not the problem, I think. Yes. Let's stick here. That's okay. Let's stick here because we have the same thing. So this particular one, the one that we are talking about, the table out here, you will find that if you just focus on the table that he has used, he has purposefully blurred them. Some of the places has been blurred and we can read a part of it, and at the same time we cannot. So I find it fascinating, like in today's time when there are like 2067 million. Let me just double check this number. Yeah, 2067 million personal data of Facebook just gets out open, and people really have no control on that. Prashanto is kind of like asking us the question that how much personal data we can actually use, showcase, or how much, what is the right of individuals when it comes to data and all. So this is very interesting, and I find it very fascinating part of Prashanto's work, where when the data is handled by artists, it will definitely be a little different from others. Then there is another thing which he does, which is pretty unique as well. He, instead of writing that he's an artist, he says that I'm a compiler. So it's not an artist, he says, I'm a compiler. Because he said to me in an interview, he said that, Piu, I photograph, I document, I transfer the images, I just put them together. So where am I as a creative person? Which is very humble of him, I think. But at the same time, what goes so very well with this whole chapter and with this whole conversation is that how compiling is also a part of image making. And whether some of us agrees with it or not, we are also in a way compiling different datas and informations and building up our own stories and all. So we can move to the next one. These are just some of the things I kept for all of us to have an idea that how he kind of like collects all the data, then he transfers them into a visual image, and then he uses it. So it's just a process of it. And we can move to the next one. This is very interesting. I find it very fascinating. Do you remember, Sudeshna and Sahiti, that we used to have match the column when we were young? So we were supposed to match one from this side to the closest on the other side. So it has to match. But what he said that it's a study again with an unique number, 8-digit. He plays with data, that's for sure. But he said that, Piu, you just connect any two and they are all connected. Why two? Every single thing is connected with each other in today's world. So I find that very fascinating.
That's very interesting, Piu, because I mean, yes, as you said, this absolutely reminds me of what we did as kids. But you see, image is a very important source of data, um, especially on the type of work we do in analytics. But it's very true that right from our childhood, we are really taught to connect the dots in a one-to-one relationship. But this perspective is really very interesting, is everything is connected to everything. Even if it's not everything to everything, at least one to many or many to one, or at least keeping our thoughts to be a little more inclusive on thinking multiple aspects should really come into when we are also thinking of drawing insights. But maybe we are not taught in that way, and maybe these are the aspects of art discipline which actually should come into our career education too, so that we can think, okay, how brinjal is connected to a stapler. That's
So the at the end of the day, the person who sells the stapler, they also, buys the brinjal and gets back home. That's what he said. But that's a beautiful interpretation, Sudeshna. And you really put it. What you just connected is something which I couldn't have. I might not been able to do it. It's true. It should be a part of our education as well, where we learn, and that's amazing. Yeah. So if you can
Do you
move
mind
on.
if I chime in?
yes.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
please.
So this also reminds me of how many a times we perceive things linearly, but
Mm.
actually perception or even evolution is not linear, but it's a web, or it creates multiple branches and allows multiplicity. So anything in life doesn't is not really linear. If you're sad and you're, dealing with issues, that's also not going to be linear. You're also going to go through ups and downs, take a different path and everything. So that's what this reminds me too, is it's a reflection of how we perceive things and how things are connected in life.
That's wonderful, right, Saiti? That's actually wonderful. True. So if Prashant is watching, he will love to hear this part. So we will move on to the next slide.
In fact, Piu, when we are in this
Yes.
slide, it just reminded me of a story 2 days back.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you know that brinjal and that lady finger and that tomato is reminding me of that story. So I was strolling in my terrace and I was trying to recollect or trying to figure out myself, okay, what should we discuss in this session? And it was pretty dark, and suddenly, I mean, I just have one rose plant in my terrace garden, and that was having just one rose in it, and I felt that it was absolutely looking like a cabbage. So I mean, it's not, it sounds very blunt, but it was too much of spread. And then you know what I did? I tried to imagine that I'm a great photographer, and I tried to have a photo from certain angles so that it really looks like a rose. Okay, so while I was trying to do that, I put on my mobile torch and I was putting all the wrong angles. And then, to my surprise, my 12-year-old came inside the terrace and he told me that you're doing it all wrong. You are not doing it correctly. You are not good at taking photographs. And then he's told me, you know what? You are only good at data and data. And that was so amazing, and that's so relevant today, because I never thought that he has watched me so much, thanks to maybe work from home. He said that you are just data, and maybe that talks of my skill set and my whole career history. So this tomato reminded
That's a
me of that.
compliment. That's a compliment.
All this.
Because you want all the women to believe that they are good in data, they are analyzing. So that's a compliment that
Oh
came from
yes,
your
oh
child.
yes, oh yes. He
Wonderful,
and
wonderful.
I was
Then
pretty
yeah, then he will should be
amazed.
listening to this part as well, where how you interpreted match sir. So this is a wonderful conversation that where all of us chip in, we talk in, and we sometimes reinterpret and painting, and that's the beauty of an art, because it's sometimes so open and abstract, it lets any other opinion, however odd, and it can be accepted. That's something very amazing about art. I find it fascinating about it.
Absolutely.
So then we can move on to the next slide. This is again, I won't talk much about it because each of his works we can talk for hours. Uh, so this is again the way he kind of collects his data, the amount of the intensive study that he uh, is involved. It's mostly that. Maybe we should move on to the slide which calls the potato farmers of Koshba. Yes. See, mostly it's the same that the other study of the brinjal, the okra that we sometimes call it in USA, where the he has used the photographs of the hands and feet, the photographs of the hands and feet of the farmer, and he has used those. So it's the same story over here as well. But what I find so unique about this work is, as it has the table at the corner as well, which is a part of the visual, there are a lot of dotted lines which talks about the horizon, the ground level, above the horizon. There are a lot of numbers, words, which became a part of the imagery, and that's a visual pleasure as well. Apart from that, the blurred table of information, and if you look at the silhouettes where the body is left, and I mean the body is left with us, but the human is taken away. So the hand which belonged to this man and no one else, uh, and only part where I find it the most fascinating, the only part where there is no data, and that part is that little blue patch he has used behind the man. That blue patch, when I had a talk with Prashanto, he said, Piu, I usually know them by person. I visit them. I know their family history, and those are all their part of the data, which I blurred them purposefully uh, with an intention. And he said, this man who is Josna's spouse, I couldn't make out the name properly, and it's wonderful to call a man a Josna's spouse. He uh, has a dream. So that this person dreams of having a house with a veranda, a small veranda where he's going to sip tea when he doesn't go out for work. A dream is the only part, the small part where no data can come in here. So no data can be formulated. So it's there, but it's there beyond the horizon line, because we really don't know what's beyond the horizon. We can't see it. And same for this man whose hands and limbs almost represent the tools. Because in countries like India and developing countries like us, the farmers sometimes don't use or don't get that facilities of using the tools or machines. It's the hands and the feet which toils and works and gives us the yield, the produce which we consume with fork, hand, or whatever. So this is his dream, and I just love the uh, playfulness of the data, which are the facts and the numbers and the reality. And on the other hand, there is this little blue patch, which is like a poetry almost. So I find this work fascinating. I find this work fascinating. So this is, I think if we go to the next slide, it's going to be the same. It just focuses on the little things of what Prashant, yes. So these are all shown in Imami Art Gallery of Kolkata, and thanks to them, they actually let me, showcase it here as well. Yeah. So I think we can move on to the next. So this is my last slide, which is a collection from uh, Art Art All in Art All India, if I'm pronouncing it right, Art All India. Um, and there, the curator Jyotirmoy Bhattacharya, he has curated this particular show. Please excuse me if I didn't pronounce the name of the gallery well. That's a shame though. So this particular work is part of the Devi series, and I find it very fascinating because Prashanto, his background, he is an engineer as well, and he kind of like he has a fascination of and a kind of immense inclination towards data and numbers. So this particular series is the hand of a construction labor, and she's a woman, and the details are also there as a table at the side. So these are a series of works, and this is just a part of it which I have showcased. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, so you mentioned it is called Devi series, right? So is there any
Yes.
significance of the, I mean, it looks like a plan behind and the angles of the hand, and some of them are gray and some of them are black. So what does the storyline talk of? I mean,
This is you just absolutely hit on the right spot, because if you look at the background, this is a floor plan. So in civil engineering, they do a floor plan. The plans are very meticulous, the layout plan. So these construction laborers, they are a part of the construction which goes on the high rises that we see in our city, the cityscapes. So what he wanted to show is the same that I talked when I talked about the suburban shadows, that these laborers, these construction laborers are nowhere once the high rises are done, once the architecture is finished. So they are those faceless, unrecognized names which we don't bother to keep any record of. But when we talk about the floor plan, the layout of it, the precision we use when we do our constructions, the space, every single thing is documented, except these people who are behind it. So what he did is he actually took the photographs of the lady who is the worker out here, one of many, and he transfer the hand, the image, and the moment you transfer the skin, the image of the skin, and you blow it, it has its all marks and its unique folds and skin, which is almost like a thumbprint. You know, when we do the biometrics every day, we get in and out of our office. It's like unique number. Uh, so he used that to represent, or not, I won't say represent, he used this to show that uh, this is how I can at least acknowledge the presence of one individual and say that uh, she's the one and they are the ones who work behind the making of the city. So, and sometimes we miss it also, right? So some of that's why the black came in. I think he used black silhouettes just to tell us, just to make us aware that sometimes the bodies left, they are just bodies, and the human, the identity is not there anymore. So he wanted to show the reality, and he wanted to show us what it could have been.
that's lovely.
Yes, yes, he does great work. So I think I'm done. I'll just go to the last slide. Yes, this is my friend Prashanto. I'm very wonderful person, and he works amazing, and he's a educator as well in Kala Bhavan Vishwabharati. So we are batchmates. So yeah. So I'm done for today, but I'm keen to listen to Sahiti.
Yeah, so before we go to Sahiti, thanks a lot, Piu, and of course to me and many like me, to my peers and people from my industry. I'm very sure that for many of them, it's not very evident that data is also used for fine arts. So we tend to think that both the industries are so different, and applied arts is, or visual arts is, that is what we can perceive. But if data and fine arts is so much related, and when I gave the example of that brinjal chart, so much of it can again be reverse applied to even our careers. Maybe it opens up another 10 streams of thought process that, okay, we can also learn from it. And that's the main theme speaking of the diversity of skills, it's trying to learn from others on mutually exclusive skills and how we can apply it into our own professions, into our own passion. And this was really lovely, Piu. We'll have more discussions, but now we'll go on with Sahiti. We'll hear
It's a pleasure.
and I think we'll take a 1 minute break and I'll transfer the control to Sahiti. Okay?
Yeah, sure. It was a pleasure.